We had some incidents that happened when you have a car that the guy spends 5 or 10 minutes on, gets it running, and then you put a driver in it and you drive through. We used to just used to have people stand at the side and we drive between them and circle around. And we'd put one car and then we'd have the other car behind that would be on deck. And so one time the fellow was looking at the car on deck. He had his head in the window, and the next car came up, and the next car that came along had no brakes. They didn't know it didn't have any brakes, and it hit the car that was on deck, and the car moved forward and hit the guy's head. And so we ended up taking him to the emergency room, and to keep that from happening again, we went and bought some cattle rails, and we put cattle rails on there and wouldn't let the guys put their heads in the cars or touch the cars anymore. We'd open up and then that was before we had the awning. And then when we had the awning, we had it come and we'd make a left turn, and we had the cattle rails and we had the stadium seating there, and we'd drive the cars in, and sometimes the brakes wouldn't work and the steering wouldn't work. And one time a car came in, and we didn't drive them very fast, luckily. Came in and the lady said, watch out, there's no brakes. And we said, well, turn, no steering either. And so we went and bent against the rails, and luckily people jumped out of the way. So then we put the highway barrier rails on that end, so that if that ever happened again, it would hit that big cement rail, and that happened a few times. Another thing that would happen is most of the cars, especially if it had been in our yard for 6 months, would have bad gas. The gas would be good, but as time goes on, then the gas gets varnish in it and stuff, and that would make the car not run too good, and it would foul up the fuel pump. So one of the things we'd do would have one guy drive and another guy sit up with the hood open and spray carburetor cleaner in the injectors or in the carburetor as they were driving through. And I would say something like, okay, here we have this car, and we had a big diesel bulldozer battery on a cart that started it. It's a huge battery, and we have the fuel pump doesn't work and it has bad gas in it, but we wanted to let you know that it runs, and that's why the guy sitting on it was spray. Now if you buy this car, you don't get the big battery, you don't get the guy to ride around with the hood open spraying in it all the time. You've got to fix the things, so keep that in mind when you bid on the car. I would say stuff like that, and people thought that was kind of funny. And another thing we did, we'd get a gallon jug and put a hole in the bottom, put a little gas in it, and have a hose going and have it up on the roof, tape it onto the roof, and have a hose go down to the carburetor so it was gravity fed. And did that also sometimes. Another thing we did was everybody wanted to know whether it was an automatic or a standard. And we would write on the windows, on the side windows, we would write 4-speed, 3-speed, auto, and how many cylinders, 6 cylinders, 4 cylinders, 8 cylinders. And so people would come through, and they could look and see what was what. And Luke was like 8 or 9 or 10 years old, and he would come to work for me quite a lot, and the assistant manager, Colin, kind of adopted and put him under his wing and taught him how to drive. Pretty soon he was driving automatics, and then he would drive stick shifts and stuff. And if they needed someone to drive in the auction, he'd put them in the car and say, here, drive this one through. So Luke got to drive through some of them. And this one time after the auction, this one lady was just making a ruckus. And she said, I know this was an automatic. And we said, ma'am, look, right on the side window it says 4-speed stick, 4-cylinder. It was a little pickup. And he said, but that little boy was driving it, and he couldn't drive a stick shift. But it was Luke, and he was driving the stick shift. So I think we ended up giving her credit, and then she bought another car the next auction. We were usually pretty strict on not letting people give the cars back